So we're now ready to go to iteration number 3 to set up the unit and display it in a picker view. So we say iteration 3, display units in a picker view. And we're going to focus in this iteration on just one single picker view. So in the problem formulation, we'll say that we need to here understand a little bit how the research is, how the conversion is done. So research to understand that. The reason I'm saying this is we're gonna have to work on the model and the data. So how does conversion work? If I say I have length, so let's say converting from feet to inch. If I have 10 feet and I want to convert that to inch, I need to find something called conversion factor and then learn that conversion factor from feet to inch is 12. So to convert from feet to inch, I multiply the amount by the conversion factor. So this means the amount, which is 10, multiplied by the conversion factor, which is 12. So that gives me 120 inch. So I can then say that 10 feet equal 120 inch. So using this simple way, how can I go about converting from any unit to the other? So how about if I want to convert from meter to miles? I need to find the conversion factor, but each unit will have a different conversion factor. But if I say I'm going to convert through a two-step process, the first step is convert from any unit to inch. So all what I need to worry about is the conversion factor from every unit to the inch. I don't have to worry about conversion factors between the units. I just go from whatever unit to the inch. And then in step 2, convert from the inch back to the unit. Back to, or not back, to the other unit. So if I want to convert from feet to meter, step 1, convert from feet to inch using the conversion factor of 12. And then step 2 is convert from not using, by multiplying by the conversion factor of 12, convert from the inch to meter by dividing by the conversion factor from meter to inch. So if I'm able to create a small table with all the units that I want and the conversion factor, I can use those two-step process, use this as two-step process for that conversion. So this means that I really need to assemble a table that says the unit and the conversion factor to inch. So what are the units I want to use? Inch is one of them, and my conversion factor to inch is 1. If I multiply any amount that is already in inch by 1, I will get it back to inch. Feet, I know it is 12. So how about the others? So what are the others that I want? I want meter, kilometer, and miles. And these are the ones I'm going to use, but you can, if you stay with length units, you can add more. So if I go to our friend Google and type conversion factor or convert from feet to inch, Google has the calculator and it will show you the conversion factor. Before Google, it used to be that we have to go to libraries and get different conversion table and so on. So foot to inch is 1. So if I want to go, and you can see here there are so many other units. If I want to go from meter to inch, the conversion factor is 39.3701. If I want to go from kilometer to inch, I multiply by 1,000, so it's 39,370.1. If I want to go from miles to an inch, it's 63360. So that understanding of the conversion process then can help us as we decide the scope of this iteration. And the scope is to create, we will need to create the units and create the unit model and display units in a picker view. And how are we going to test that? So in a testing scenario, open the app and observe that all unit names are displayed in a picker view. We will not be able to do that without building the unit model because that's why I added that here. So step 2 is the solution formulation. And first is the model. So how am I going to save this data and use it? So I have the unit name by itself is a string. The conversion factor by itself is a decimal number. But this combination together is a collection. It's a collection of two things, a key and a value. So it's two columns. One column represents a name or a key that leads you to the second column, which is the value. If I want to come to this table and tell you what is the unit conversion of, you're going to tell me of what? You will want from me to give you one of those keys. So I'll say feet. So you use the feet to find this second row and then look to the value and come back and tell me the factor for the feet is 12 because this is the value associated with this key. So in the model, we're going to use property list file to store the units and their conversion factor to inch using the dictionary collection. The dictionary collection is the one that supports this key and value. In other words, you are storing the conversion factors using a custom name as the index. This is different from an array because in array, the index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you cannot customize that. But in a dictionary, you can customize and name your index by providing the string value of the key. So we'll use that and we will represent the entire unit and their conversion factors in a type called NSDictionary. The units itself, which all the keys, we're going to need them. So we need another collection, NS array, for the unit names, and this one for the units and their conversion factors. Because we're going to need that dictionary to run the calculations for the conversion, and we're going to need the unit names themselves because that's what we're going to display to the user. So in the view, we will add UIPickerView. And the UIPickerView is interesting. You will we'll see that when we get to the implementation. The UIPickerView only have the ability to display rows and columns. It does not know what goes inside the row and the column. So it delegates that to another class, another object. So in order for you to use the UIPickerView, you will need to tell the UIPickerView about another class that is capable of providing it with how many rows, how many columns, and what goes inside each row in each column. So we will introduce something called UIPickerView data source delegate, data source, and UIPickerView delegates. These two are special units of software called protocol. The protocol, if you have some background, is similar to interface in Java. It's a definition. It's a way to provide a contract between two classes. One class in this case is the picker view, and the other class is the one that will provide the data. The purpose of that is so the picker view knows which specific method name and which format to provide, so it can or the data source, the class that has the data, knows how to provide those to the picker view. So all of this work will happen in the controller. So the controller will need to our custom controller need to assume additional responsibilities to provide the picker view with information about its content by implementing the picker view protocols. And we'll see that in a moment. I won't spend much time because we will spend time discussing that in the next video. And maybe it is actually worthwhile here to take a look at these three classes in the API documentation. So if I switch to Xcode and go to Window and go to Documentation and API Reference, then type UIPickerView, UIPickerView. So here is the class UIPickerView, but it also picked up the protocols UIPickerView delegate, UIPickerView data source, and there are others as well related to that. So we'll look at the UIPickerView first. It tells you that it implements picker views that uses a spinning wheel to show one or more sets of values. You select the value by rotating the wheel so that the desired align with the selection indicator. Then overview tells you a little bit what it does and how it is constructed and how it is created. And it tells you that you can content can be a string or view, and then give you some information about how you can get the dimensions of your picker view, reloading the picker view, selecting rows in the picker view, returning the view for a row, and so on, and the delegate and the data source. If we click on the delegate, it tells you this is the delegate for the picker view, and this is the type. It says here the delegate here is a class, is another object. You can choose whichever object you want to serve as a delegate. Since I have a custom controller, I will use the custom controller as the delegate, and says that the delegate must adopt this protocol and implement the required method. So if you go to the picker view delegate itself, it says that if you want to provide the picker view, if you as a class has data that the picker view needs and you want to provide that data to the picker view, you must adapt that protocol, because by adapting the protocol it tells you you need to provide any of these methods. So the methods are in these groups are optional, but to use a picker view you must implement one of them. So there's not a single one that's required, but you must tell the picker view either the title, what goes on each row or column, or the view. So you need to give it a title, which is a label, meaning you can only display a string, or you can make a complex display of a view that includes both image or any other items. By being a delegate, you can also respond to the selection of the picker view, which is what we're going to use later on at the end of this project. But in addition to being a delegate, there is also the data source. And And the data source works in a similar fashion, but it provides the picker view with data. So if you look at the UIPickerView data source, you find that it has two required functions. One provides the picker view with the number of components, and the other, and it says here required. So if you're gonna assume the responsibility of being the picker view data source, you must provide these two methods. One, it says how many components. The components are the columns inside the wheel, and the rows are how many rows you have. In our case, we're only gonna display the number of the names of the units. So we only need one component, and we need as many rows as there will be units in your list. So that's the controller, and that's these three. So in the solution implementation of this iteration, I need to first create or add a property source, add a property list file, and populate with the units, and then we'll need to modify the controller to load the content of the file into a dictionary object and extract the names of the units into an array object. Then I need to implement the UIPickerView or enable, maybe I'll write it this way, enable the custom controller of the screen to serve as a delegate and a data source for a picker view. And then after that, I need to add a picker view object to the screen. And then the step after that, connect the picker view to the custom controller as its delegate and data source. And then finally test and commit the changes. So this video became too long, so I'm gonna stop that here, and in the next video we'll implement these three steps in the solution implementation.